Hi, hello, and welcome to class. Welcome to class. It's good to have you here again. Yes, this is English language class, and we're going to continue from where we stopped the last class. All right, if you can hear me loud and clear, kindly drop a thumbs up in your chat box so that I know that you can hear me. All right, thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you. All right. So today we are going to continue from where we stopped the last class, and we started looking at punctuation and spelling. Punctuation and spelling. All right. So we started with punctuation in the last class, and we were able to see the importance of punctuation. We're able to look at punctuations like punctuation marks like full stop, like the comma, like the full colon, like the semicolon, like the apostrophe, like the hyphen and the dash. All right. The quotation mark, we were able to look at those and we saw their uses and how important they are in our everyday sentence, especially when you're writing. Right. So, and then we continued by looking at common spelling rules and errors that are common when one is spelling. All right. So, like I mentioned, we're going to continue from where we stopped the last class, and that's on common spelling rules. We started looking at common spelling rules. And I explained the last class that while we are looking at this, especially in preparation for your UTME, is because there are exam questions that are related to spellings. All right. So you are given options and you're asked to choose the most appropriate of the options. And out of four options, you see that the word you're supposed to choose is there, but you have four variants of spelling and you're supposed to choose one. So sometimes you get confused on which you should choose because sometimes two of the options look alike and then you're confused on which one is the most appropriate. So we are looking at spelling rules that could help you. And after looking at the spelling rules, we're going to be looking at spelling tricks. All right, tricks that could help you in choosing the right spelling for your options. All right. And again, I need to remind you that when we're talking about rules and we're talking about tricks or tips, there are usually exceptions, but the exceptions are minimal compared to what the rules will cover. So there's sometimes that you look around and the rules and the tricks that you have may not cover for a particular question, but it's going to be minimal compared to the number of questions you're going to see, and then you will see that the rules and the tricks would work for them. All right. So we started looking at common spelling rules, and the first one we looked at in the last class was the rule of I before E. The rule of I before E. Okay, so the rule of I before E, that's the very first one that we looked at. Now we're going to continue and we have rule number two. And rule number two is plural spelling changes. Okay, plural spelling changes. All right, when we talk about plural, we already know that we are not talking about one thing, we're talking about more than one thing. Because in English language, we have the singular and we have the plural, right? So, rule number two, plural spelling changes. Okay, so we have plural spelling changes. Okay, so for plural spelling changes, we already know that we have singular and we have plural, and there are sometimes that singular Once we see the singular of a word, we already know the plurals because what we need to do is just to add an S or to add an ES. All right. So we have words like boy, and you already know that the plural is boys. You have words like box, and you're already familiar that the plural for these is boxes, right? So what we are doing under this rule is very similar to what we already know. Okay, so like I mentioned, most nouns, because when you're talking about singular, you're talking about plurals, we are mostly talking about nouns, all right? And you're talking about the countable on and the uncountable, all right? It is when you can count something that you can pluralize it. When you can count a box, then you can pluralize it. You can say one box, two boxes, three boxes, four boxes, etc. etc. When you see a boy, you know that this is one boy. When you see two boys, you can count that these are two boys. All right, that's for singular and plural, and mainly that's talking about noun. So noun is usually that part of speech that you can pluralize. All right, so when we're talking about plural spelling changes, we're talking about the fact that most nouns just add s in the plural, but some words change spellings instead. Okay, some words change spellings instead. So when you need to pluralize a word, it means you need to change the spelling of that word instead of just adding s or simply adding es. Okay, so example like this is when we have leave. All right, so you know we're not going to say leaves. We know that this is wrong. All right, so this is changing. It's changing from singular to plural, and it's changing in word because you're not just adding s to it to show that it is plural. Now it becomes leaves. All right, leaves. Okay, so when you have leaf, we already know that this is a singular noun and it changes its form, it changes its spelling when it turns to plural. All right, we have some other examples like um, child that we're used to. Child, you know, you're not going to say childs instead of adding just s, or instead of saying childs, adding es, which is wrong. It changes its entire form to children. Children, it changes its entire form. And sometimes you're just wondering, where does this suffix come from? Because of course we can see the word child, we know the meaning of child, and we need to pluralize it. Usually we should just add s or add es to it, but these words, this set of words that we are dealing with, change their entire form. That means they change their spelling. That's what we mean by plural spelling changes. So you need to put your mind on the fact that there's some words that when they are announced and you need to pluralize them, you're not adding s to them, you're not adding es to them as the normal thing that we're used to, but the fact that these words change their form and they change their spelling when they need to be pluralized. That's what we mean by plural spelling changes. All right, so the second or the third rule we are looking at is the drop the e rule. Okay, the drop the e rule. The drop the e rule. All right, so this is point number two, plural spelling changes. And then the third one is the drop the E rule. Okay, so this is what it means. Now we're talking about rules. Remember that we're talking about common spelling rules. All right. The first one, I'm reminding you again, the first one is the I before the E rule. The second one is the plural spelling changes. The third one is the drop the E rule. Now, this is a rule, and the rule says drop the E. Okay, so drop the E. That's what we're focusing on. So that's why we call it the drop the E rule. So drop the E is in a quote, all right? You can see the quotation mark to show that that is the rule that we are referring to. So we are dropping the E. So in some spellings, it is telling you that when you see some certain words, you need to drop the E before you can continue with your spelling. Okay, I'm going to explain that better. All right, so we have words that end in E, words that end in E. And then before you can continue spelling your word, you need to drop the E before you add some other things. I'm sure you're familiar with words like care. All right. Now, if you need to spell caring, you're not going to say this, okay? This is wrong. It means you need to drop something. You need to drop the E. So we have caring, we have Caring instead of Careing. All right. So care to caring, you have to drop the E. Okay. So, and why do we need to drop the E? We drop the E because keeping the E will change the pronunciation of those words. Okay. The words are going to sound odd. Imagine having words like this. Now there will be a kind of confusion because at the first glance you're not going to call this open. Okay, you're not going to call it open. It looks weird. Okay, there's some other words like it too. You have write EING. At the first glance, you're not going to call this writing. So words like this need to drop the E. So when you see some words in your UTME exam and it's asking you to choose the correct word, and you know that the root word, of course, the root word of this is hope, okay? The root word of this is right. When you see this root word and they end with E, hope ends with E, right ends with E, care ends with E, all right? The word love, LOVE, ends with E, advice, ADVISE, ends with E, dance, DANCE, ends with E. These words and some other words that ends with E need to be dropped if they have to be in a continuous tense. Okay, if they have to be in a continuous tense, that means that you are adding ing to them. Okay, or maybe even the past tense where you have ed. It means you need to drop the E. So when you see options and you see maybe option A, it has open, option B has this, option C has this, G, all right, and option D as this. Okay, now your context helps you determine what you are going for, right? But in this case, we know that we are dealing with spelling, and then maybe you have your filling in the gap, and it's asking you to choose the correct spelling to fill in the gap. Now it says, maybe the question says, I am dash that I could make it to the program. I am dash that I could make it to the program. Now you know that the word that you need to fill in with that is that I am open that I could make it to the program. And then you need to fill in the gap with any of these four options. All right, any of these four options. Now you see your option and you know that your root word is hope and it ends with E. Once it ends with E, before your ing, you have to remove the E before ing. Okay, so you need to remove the E before the ing for you to know your correct option. So that's what the rule says by dropping the E rule. All right, so we're going to move quickly into spelling tricks. We just finished on spelling rules, and there are just three tips that I gave you on spelling rules. Now we move to spelling tricks. Spelling tricks. Okay, so I'm going to wipe off the board now. All right, so spelling tricks. All right, so when you're talking about tricks, it means you're talking about something that could help you quickly to get an answer. All right, something that could help you quickly to get an answer. And the first thing we are looking for, or the first thing we are looking at, is breaking words into syllables. Breaking words into syllables. Let me have that written on the board. Breaking words into syllables. All right, so it says break the word into syllables. Now, dividing a word into smaller parts helps you to see if it follows common spelling pattern. All right. Now, you understand what syllable means? Okay. So, um, you can have the word dividing, and you need to break it into syllable. You can have something like dividing, to say, okay, this is three syllables. All right, so that's what it means to break it into syllables. So when you have your four options in your UTME, break those words, the four options, break them into syllable and see if those syllables and the word follow the common spelling pattern. Whichever one does not follow this normal spelling pattern, you know that is the wrong option. All right, so usually you're not allowed to say anything in the examination hall, but you can use the trick by saying it inside of you. You know, you can just think inside of you, but you can hear yourself. You're not saying it out loud. All right, you're not even opening your mouth, but you are saying it right inside of you, but your spirit can hear it. Yes, you can say the word inside of you. You say it slowly inside of you. All right, and listen for the beat to determine the syllables. All right, so in because you're dealing with CBT, you may not be able to write to break down the syllable, but it's something that you can do in your mind. You break the syllable in your mind, and then looking at the word, you are looking at or you are looking for familiar patterns in each part. You're looking for familiar patterns in each part. I'm going to give you an example. We have the word necessary. Okay, we have the word necessary. Okay, now you need to break this word into syllable. Okay, so you have, okay, and you have this. Okay, some may have it in three syllables, but usually it should be four. Okay, so you have necessary. Okay, now that you have this, you need to look for common patterns to help you determine, especially confusing words. You may not remember if necessary carries double C or it carries double S. Okay, you just need to look for normal pattern. Okay, so the common starts with NE, and of course you have words like nephew that also starts with it. So it means this start is common and is normal. All right. You have this word CES. Okay. You try to look for a common pattern. All right. CES. You look for a common pattern and you can find CES or CESS, as the case may be, whichever one you want to go with, in the word process. You're looking for common pattern after breaking those words into syllable. All right. Now that we've broken it into syllable, we have this. All right. So NE, very common. You have it in words like nephew. CES or CESS, common also because we have the word in process. All right. So, and then you can see that last part, SARY, SARY, and then you're looking at words that ends with ARY, all right, SARY or something ARY, to be sure that there's a common pattern with ARY. So you can have a word like library, ARY. So there is a common pattern to help you determine that this word is correctly spelled. Now you may be confused to find something like NECC. All right, you just need to find a common pattern. Is there a word with NECC? If you're not sure there's a word with NECC or you can't think of any word with NECC, then you may be confused. All right, but because we can find something after breaking it down to syllables, we have a common pattern with NE, we have a common pattern with CES or CESS, and then we have a common pattern with ARY. All right, so breaking down the syllables help you to know whether the syllable follow a common pattern where you can also follow to determine your correct spelling. All right, the next trick that we are looking at, all right, is to check for common letter combinations. Okay, to check for common letter combinations. I'm going to wipe off the board so we can have point number 2 under common spelling tricks. Common spelling tricks. All right. Point number 2, you're checking for common letter combination. Common letter combination. And what does that mean? It means that there are some letters, they naturally appear together in English language, while some others do not. Okay? When you see some letters, you know that they go together. Okay? You can see words like ch. Of course, you find words like check, like church, all right? Ch here, ch here, all right? You find words like chill, okay, like chili, all right? So words like this, ch, you know they go together. You find combinations, letter combinations like wh. Wh, you have who, you have where, okay, you have while, etc. You know that WH goes together, CH goes together. And of course, um you have consonants and vowels also coming together. All right. So you have TO, okay, you have GO, etc. So there's some words that when you see them, the letters or the letter they pair with naturally go with them. So you have to check for common letter combinations. When you find an option under the options you are given and you see that these words or these letters do not naturally go with each other, then you know there's something wrong with that spelling. Again, please do not forget that there are exceptions to these rules and the exceptions to these tricks, but the exceptions are usually minimal. All right, so you check for common letter combinations. All right, for you can find RH maybe for reading. Right. Okay, so some other examples or some letter combinations that we can quickly look at and you can just familiarize yourself with. You have combinations like TION, you're familiar with that. You have TION, you have SION, okay, you have CAIN, all right, and you have examples like education, right? Decision, you already know, okay? Musician, all right? So you find these combinations and you are used to them that, okay, words, there are some words that have the combinations of TION, SION, CIAN, all right? So there's some words with this combination, and you just need to know that when you see a word like that, you know that that last part is right. It means you need to focus on something else. Now, there are some letter combinations like OUGH, OUGH. Sometimes this may look like, okay, what's going on here? But this, you can find words like rough, words like tough, okay? Words like cough, cough, enough, okay? So words like this, you know that these letters go together. So when you see in a spelling, whether it is a very big spelling or the normal spelling that you know, and you see a combination on OUGH, do not rule out that option. Check that option through to be sure that you are choosing the right thing. So letter combinations like OUGH also, we can find them. All right. Letter combinations like IE or EI. We talked about this in our last class. All right. Letter combinations like IE or EI. You find words like thief. All right. Words like thief, words like deceive. All right. Words like um weird for EI, right? For EI, you find words like weird. So this combination, IE or EI, are not weird combinations. It means we can find them in English language. Also, we find word or letter combinations like able or able. All right, able, and you find examples like reliable, okay, reliable, visible, that's IBLE. This one ABLE, this one IBLE. All right, incredible, incredible. So letter combinations on ABLE or IBLE. So when you see these options, you know that okay, these words are possibilities. All right. Letter combinations or on ENT and ANT. ENT and ANT. ENT and ANT. You can find examples like different, that's ENT, right? And then you can find examples like important, important, that's ANT. So we have looked at the combination of CH, we've looked at the combination of TION, we've looked at the combination of WH, we've looked at the combination of SION, CIAN. We've looked at the combinations of OUGH. We've looked at the combination of IE or EI. Then the combinations of ABLE or IBLE. Combinations of ENT and ANT. Now, these combinations, you may need to just cram them, all right? You may need to memorize them so that when you see any spelling at all, you need to just know these combinations. And when you see any of these combinations in a word, you know that that part of the word is not wrong. So you need to focus on other parts, maybe using some other combinations to determine whether the spelling is right or wrong. All right, I'm going to wipe this off so that we can continue on the letter combination. All right, we have a combination of CE or SE, CE or SE. So you can find advise. All right, so both the noun and the verb. Advise, advise. All right, advise as the noun, advise as the verb. So CE, SE. When you see word combination like that, okay, you can find words like license, all right, license. Okay, all right, we have what we have combinations like OUS too, OUS, combinations like OUS. Okay, for OUS we have examples like dangerous, curious, famous. Okay, so we have famous, we have dangerous, we have curious, all right, etc. Okay, we have combinations like ARY, ARY, all right, ERY, and ORY, ARY, ERY, ORY. Okay, so for this we can have library, that's ARY. For ERY, we can have a word like bakery. Okay, we can have a word like bakery. And for ORY, right, you can have a word like history, history. Okay, so you have usually have combinations like this. Okay, we can also have combinations like ful, ful, les. We're familiar with some of these words. Beautiful, right? Careless, careful, etc. Okay, we have combinations like ly. Okay, ly. That's like you talk about quickly, easily, carefully, etc. So you know that these combinations are not out of place. We can also have combinations like IES or IZE. Sometimes this is usually used for American spellings, for British spellings rather, while this is used for American spellings. All right, but sometimes in British you're permitted to use both interchangeably. All right, so you can have words like realize or realize. All right, so you can have these combinations too. FUL, all of these combinations. You can look out for these combinations to determine your correct spelling. All right, the next one we are looking at is to identify root words or word origin. To identify root words or word origins. All right, I'm going to have to wipe off the board. Okay, so identifying root words or word origins. This may be a little tricky and a little difficult because not everyone is familiar with root words or word origins. Say, for instance, the word conscience comes from a particular language, that's Latin, and some people may not be familiar with it at all. So this is what this is dealing with. If you know your root words and you know your word origins, that could be your it could be like a trick for you. Okay, so there are words that came from Latin, from Greek, from French. So when you know the origin of these words, they could help you with your spelling. They help you understand the word origin, and they help you to determine what letters to put together to get the appropriate spelling. All right. So if you can identify root words or word origins, then that's a bonus and a plus for you. So for instance, I mentioned the word conscience. Okay. I mentioned the word conscience, and you can have conscience. All right. Conscience comes from Latin. Okay. It comes from Latin, and it has something to do with the meaning of knowledge within, like knowing something within. That's what it means in Latin. All right. So in Latin, we know that there are letter combinations like CS, which is found in the word conscience. So we have CONSCIENCE. Okay. So when you hear the word conscience at first, you may not at first glance say that C or SC is the spelling for it. All right. But because it is Latin, you know that Latin deals with SC. Okay. SC. Words like discipline too. So discipline, you have DISCIPLINE. Okay. So um you have your SC. Okay. And then when you see words like SH, SCH, all right, SCH, you know that this is not a Latin pattern at all. This is not Latin. this is rather German. So once you see a word and you know the origin, and if the origin or the word origin is Latin and you are seeing SCH as part of your option, you know that that option is wrong, because the word is a Latin word or comes from the Latin root. So SCH is not part of your option. That's what we mean by identifying root words or word origin. So once you're able to identify that this word that you're looking for its spelling is a Latin word or a Greek word, then you will be able to determine whether you are going for SC or you are going for SH. That's what this means basically. All right. And then the last thing we are looking under this trick before we look at a past question is to cross check with related words. Okay. To cross check with related words. Cross checking with related words. And what does it mean? To cross-check related words means to compare words. To compare words. So sometimes a tricky word can be very easy to spell if you think of a related word that you already know. All right. So if the two words, the spelling you're trying to get and the word that you already know have the same root, then there's every tendency that their spelling will follow the same pattern. Okay. So when you see a word like um proceed, you can see a word like proceed and you are trying to get the correct spelling for the word proceed, or you are asked to choose the appropriate word for proceed. Now you just need to think of a word that's familiar to it. Okay, you need to think of a word that's familiar to it, maybe process. Okay, so you talk about process. Okay, so and that means to like keep going. So if you look for a similar word, they may share the same spelling pattern. So once you're able to pronounce the word, sometimes you can pronounce a word and you may not be able to spell it. So this one works well for when you can pronounce the word. So you pronounce your word in your mind, you pronounce that word in your mind, and see if there's any word that you are very familiar with the spelling that also sound like that word. Okay, so once you're able to get that word, what does that word spells like? If you're able to get what that word spells like, then you may be able to determine what this word is. So you talk about proceed and you talk about process. All right, you already know that. Okay, you are dealing with PROCE, then you need to just look for the remaining part of the spelling. So that's what it means by cross-checking with related words. So once you have a difficult word you need to spell, you have a confusing word, and you can pronounce that word. You just need to look for a word you're very familiar with the spelling and see if they follow the same spelling pattern to determine your appropriate spelling. All right, so we have come to the end of the class for today. We're going to take a past question, but before then, let's do a quick review of what we did today. We continued with common spelling rules, and we actually started that in the last class. And the first one we looked at is the I before the E rule. I before the E rule. So the second rule that we looked at today is plural spelling changes. That means that some word changes entirely when you need to pluralize them. Then the third one is drop hear me. If you can hear me, kindly drop a thumbs up. All right, thank you. Thank you. Although we are at the end of the class, sorry for that break. We're going to take a past question now, and this is from 2011 UTME. 2011 UTME. This is still for spelling. All right. Okay. So we have this question. It says choose the option that best completes the gap. All right. There are many ways to kill a rat, so we should be dash in our approach to the task ahead of us. All right. So we have four options. We have the option, it sounds the same thing, but we need just one appropriate, eclectic. All right. Just one appropriate answer. So which of the eclectic is correct? All right. Which of them is correct? So to determine the correct spelling, all right, you need to break it down into syllables, just like we mentioned. So breaking the word down into syllables, all right, so you can have um for option for all of the options, you have to break them down. So eclectic, you already know that ec sounds familiar. Okay, ec sounds familiar. Okay, so EC like economy, like ecology, etc. So you don't have a problem with it. All right, I'm meddling this with checking for common letter combination. So EC is a common letter combination. Now you look at some other things that you can check for. IC. IC is also a common letter combination, especially in words like artistic, like classic, etc. But IK is not a common English combination. IK is not a common English combination. So we know that something is wrong with this. Okay. IC, we know that EC is a common letter combination. IC is a common letter combination. So for EC, it means that all of them pass the test. But for IC, it means that D does not pass the test. So we are left with three options. Okay, we are left with three options. Now, when we say eclectic, okay, each part following a familiar spelling rules. Okay, so instead of having C, English language does not usually have K for spelling for um for that sound. Okay, so you have C basically dyslexic, all right? So it doesn't have K. It sounds with C. Okay, so we know that something is wrong with this one with the K sound. So it means we are left with two options. Okay, and the way it sounds, it's dyslexic. Okay, so after breaking it down, in this is for you if you know how to pronounce the word basically. Okay, so you have that syllable that carries the k sound in the second syllable. So the first option does not have that sound, so it means it is wrong, and we are left with just one option, which is option B. So we know that option B is the most appropriate of the options. All right. So this question is from 2011 UTME. You can go to the app to check your questions and see the ones you can attend to using the spelling rules and the spelling tricks that we have looked at today. All right. We have come to the end of the class today. All right. And I will see you in the next class. All right. Bye bye.